This is All of It on WNYC. I'm Allison Stewart. The American horror movie canon is chock full of queer subtext. In Dracula's Daughter, the vampire offspring of Dracula is heavily implied to be a lesbian. In Scream, the relationship between the two serial killers has sort of homoerotic undertones. In their latest feature, Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma, director Jane Schoenbrunn plays with this trope. It's a campy yet visually arresting slasher movie, but there's also clear commentary on these broader cultural narratives and on the experience of being a queer filmmaker. It follows Chris, a successful indie filmmaker. She's played by Hannah Einbinder. She's tapped by a big studio to revive the slasher franchise Camp Miasma. Chris wants the final girl of the original Camp Miasma film series to be in the new version. They meet and they form a strange but intimate friendship. My guests today are writer and director Jane Schoenbrunn. Welcome back to WNYC.
Thanks for having me.
And actor Hannah Einbinder, who you may know as Ava Daniels from the TV show Hacks. Hi, Hannah.
Hi.
It's nice to meet you.
Likewise.
So this film is packed with references to horror movies. What was your first exposure to horror?
My first exposure to horror was at my grandparents' house in Flushing, Queens when I was a kid. And I think they had Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein and Night of the Living Dead on tape.
Perfect, of course.
But very quickly I graduated to the video store in my hometown where like the horror section was just calling to me from the corner of the store. And my best friend and I... in like fifth grade, we rented every Nightmare on Elm Street movie in the span of like 7 days. We were completely obsessed, and very quickly just became like my favorite thing to do is rent a nasty looking movie and see what happened to be on that tape that I wasn't supposed to see.
What were you obsessed with?
I think it was like controlled chaos. Like I was growing up in this very, like late 20th century, like perfect suburban town. I felt a little off or like I felt the sense that like all of the things around me were like maybe a little too good to be true, and that made them boring. And so those tapes, and this was before the internet, you could, the internet was just starting. You couldn't in the same way really look up what, like, the Wikipedia plot summary of the movie.
Which I do.
Which I do all the time. Those tapes contained like it was like, what is going to be on this tape that I'm not supposed to see? And that was a thrilling question because I got the sense that there were things that I wasn't supposed to see.
Hannah, what was your relationship with this genre?
Yeah, I mean, my mom is actually a big horror fan, total horror nerd, so she exposed me to a lot of it early on. But I think my main sort of the gap in my horror exposure was the slasher subgenre. So I was more into like the Stephen King, John Carpenter stuff, like supernatural horror, comedic horror. And doing the movie, I feel like I've been joking that I went to the Jane Schoenbrunn Film Academy for Girls because I got the fleshed out, education on more of the slasher stuff. So yeah, I mean, I've always felt like there's like an intrinsic link between horror and comedy. I think that they are the genre of the outsider. I think that they both deal with that buildup of tension and that release. And so it's like a rhythm that feels very familiar to me.
It's interesting because the first time I think in the film I laughed out loud was you're playing Chris, you're in the car, and you can't get your mittens on. Like you're struggling with your mittens. Like this successful filmmaker can't get her mittens on. How is Chris described in the film? When you look at the script, how is she described?
I think kind of like quirky, intellectual. I'm trying to think of like this.
Probably that like kind of like core more in her head than in her body duality.
Yeah, someone affectionately used the term nebbish, which I am honored to embody in the film. Yeah, I think probably.
Oh, I remember how Chris is described in the script. It says she's like a female Woody Allen.
Oh,
you remember that line? It says
yeah.
she's like a female Woody Allen, except for ... never mind.
Wait, yes, that is in the script. That is in the script. That is exactly it. Yeah, so Ned Nebbish, yeah.
How did you decide that Hannah would be the right person for this role?
It was kind of a new experience for me because like the second I started imagining Hannah in the role, there was just like no questions in my mind about the character. Usually I kind of like come from a camp of thinking with like writing a screenplay that like you're writing the character like 70% of the way there. You have to leave a lot of space for the human being to kind of come in and change your idea of the character and evolve your idea of the character.
That's incredibly generous of you to say that. I've heard writers have their characters already scripted and somebody just shoved in the
I mean
role.
it's a core belief of
Wow.
filmmaking for me is that like you're collaborating with reality and with other people, and you know, so you have to the same goes for like locations, you know, the same goes for everything in the movie. It's the joy of the medium. But with Hannah it was like that 70% got filled in, or the last 30% got filled in like before I'd even met her, because her voice, it was like I could just so immediately kind of like take what I knew of her work and combine it with what was on the page, and I was just like, oh, this is such a no-brainer. This is completely there, which I had never really experienced before. Usually it's like part of the thrill and this was more the experience with Jillian, was like I know Jillian is going to be amazing in this role, but there is going to be such a mystery to explore of like who this person is and how she is going to change my conception of the character. Whereas with Hannah it was just like, no, Hannah equal Chris, cool. And that kind of held true throughout.
We're talking about Gillian Anderson. She plays Billy, the person you're trying to get to be in your film. That was amazing to hear a writer-director say that, I thought. Did you feel, not responsibility, but did you feel that you had control over your character, that you were given 30% of it to figure it out?
Well, yeah, I think that like, you know, the thing that I was really focused on is like how to embody this energy that is so different from my own. And so I do think that, frankly, like what my view of it is that like we just had, I think, ultimately the same like vision. Like there was so much already in the script that I latched onto, and maybe that 30% like just was my like reinforcing the thing that I thought was kind of already there. Also just, yeah, I mean, like there are elements of the character, I think on an emotional level, like a lot of Jane's work, there is like, it is imbued with like their experience in some ways. And so like, I think, that was the thing that I was also most focused on, is like connecting to the truth of what the character is trying to communicate. And then, yeah, I think the rest just came as a result of like, you know, things like costume and those things that help me to just like embody a different energy.
I'm speaking with director Jane Schoenbrunn and actor Hannah Einbinder about their new feature, Teenage Sex and Death at Cat Miasma, which follows a filmmaker's journey to reboot a slasher franchise. You can catch it in theaters starting tomorrow. I've seen this film described so many different ways. How would you describe it? I want to hear from the filmmaker.
Yeah, I remember early on making a decision with myself that the film was not a horror movie at its deepest level, that the film is a romance and perhaps even a romantic comedy. And then you like sprinkle in a lot of horror spice.
Okay.
It follows, I think, like the genre. Like if it follows any genre all the way through to the end, it's the romantic comedy genre. You're watching two people
Meet cute, kind of?
they meet cute, they match each other's freak,
Yes.
and then perhaps they fall in love.
On the surface, you go to get Billy to join the film. And it's a challenge for her because Billy's not so sure. What else is a challenge for your character that isn't right on the surface.
Well,
Starts with an S.
then an E, then X. Sex. Yeah, I think like just sort of the global being in the mind and not the body. Like I think the thing that the film explores is, that discomfort in one's body and sort of shame surrounding desire and a disconnection from desire and an understanding of what that means and if that is possible to achieve. And I think the beautiful relationship in the film is a sort of template for how people can connect to their own desire and defeat shame. So I think that's kind of like the undercurrent throughout.
Let's listen to a clip from Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma, where Chris is explaining her vision of the reboot to Billy, played by Gillian Anderson. There's something pretty meta in this, and we'll talk about it on the other side. Let's listen.
I don't want to make another dumb sequel in the Camp Miasma franchise. I don't want to make a remake of a remake of a remake. I want to make something that feels fresh and new.
Even the original Miasma movie was based on a real serial killer, Ed Gein.
It's like I said in my letter. I mean, to me, the soul of Camp Miasma has always been that look in your character's eye. Exactly. That look has been seared into my memory ever since I saw it on a VHS tape I had absolutely no business being able to watch as an 8-year-old. If I can capture that look in your eye again 35 years later, then I will have done my job as the latest shepherd
in the Camp Miasma legacy. I know. I read your letter. It's a good pitch. I'm just not convinced that it'll work.
Why not?
Because you talk about it so academically. In Camp Miasma, it wasn't about cultural depictions of monstrosity or gender trouble or any of that stuff. It was about two very simple things. Flesh and fluid.
So funny. You both were like mouthing the words.
We want the film to have a Rocky horror element where people see it over and over and then they chant at the screen.
Go, flesh
and fluids.
There's a couple things about that. First of all, Gillian uses a Southern accent.
Yes, she sure does.
She sure does. Was that written into the script?
Oh,
was
absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Okay, so Gillian
That's
Anderson
the
is an
30%.
amazing. It's amazing, right? So she shows up and she says, "Jane, I have this idea," or did she just show up with it? I wanted to know about the Southern accent.
She asked.
Okay.
She asked. She shared. Maybe I was a little freaked at first in the abstract. And then I will never forget like the first time Hannah and Gillian read together, which was like 3 days before production. It was like, yeah, you write. There's a lot of dialogue in that scene we just listened to, and in some of those early scenes, and it's supposed to be snappy in this way, and it just had like all of these dimensions that were there but weren't there when I heard it between the two of them, and I think specifically what Gillian is going for there versus like Hannah's more like grounded straight man kind of energy. I was just like, this is so weird and sexy and goofy and absurd. It's like the whole thing is like my sense of humor. And it really was. It was just like, thank God we had that Southern accent. The movie would just be like 20% less spicy without it.
What did you learn from Gillian Anderson after working with her?
You know, Gillian has a really interesting balance of being very diligent and intentional with her process and wanting to have in-depth conversations about the material on the day, and also, you know, keeping track of, you know, physical choreography in a way that's very meticulous, while also having a spontaneity to her performance and an ability to kind of be really free and, you know, mix things up. So that was pretty cool to watch. It helped me to kind of reflect on like, how do I want my process to be? Do I want to, you know, have you know, adopt some of these methods? And it's pretty cool to watch.
How did you get in the mindset to film your character's desires, both sets of desires, in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the subject matter is incredibly personal. I think it's exploring something that we don't really admit to one another, especially, I think we don't really see it explored in film in the way that the movie explores, dissociation and feeling discomfort during sex, feeling like you are performing some role that isn't really actually, real or comfortable or true to you based on what you are expected to do and be. And so, Jane and I just had a lot of really personal conversations about our experiences, and that was super helpful for me to tap into just how much of this I related to. And I did relate to it a lot. And that's just kind of why that's one of the reasons why the movie is so important to me, because I feel like as an audience member almost, like myself, for the film, even if I wasn't in it, it would probably force me to reflect on certain things that maybe I thought I was alone in. And so, a lot of those conversations helped me to get into the mindset to, walk through those scenes where you do see that happening. And the truth is, it's like a familiar thing. And so I was happy. It was very cathartic to perform that and to embody that for myself, and obviously also, I hope, for other people.
Was it hard for you to see your vulnerability being played out, Jane?
Yeah, like occasionally.
Yeah.
There were days, I know the feeling now of like a day on set where like there's always something insane that you're trying to do every day on set, and sometimes that thing is technical, and sometimes that thing is like dance, and sometimes that thing is like I am going to try to put on screen the invisible thing. I'm going to try to like why make a movie instead of write an essay, because there's something that cinematic language can help illuminate, and in this case that thing is sexual trauma, and an oblique sexual trauma, the sexual trauma of never quite feeling like yourself or comfortable in sex, or like sex is something to actually be like lost in, or this thing that seems so effortless and easy for so many people, but there's something that you haven't quite figured out about it that other people seem to effortlessly engage in. And I think the magic trick is like what Hannah is speaking about, is like when you do start talking about the thing that no one talks about, everyone all of a sudden is like, oh my God, I know that feeling.
Yeah.
And that's what it was like on set. Like we had obviously like a pretty close set for some of the more intimate scenes in the movie, but my producer Caddy was right next to me, and when she saw she saw the look. It wasn't even a line of dialogue. It was just the look on your face, Hannah, and she just started crying at monitor, and she was just like, I understand what the film is now. I and so many people know this feeling.
But it's hilarious. Well, it's a laugh riot, folks. Don't be scared.
You just lead me to this text that I was like, let's lighten it up a little bit. Now, this text came in from someone that says, what are each of your relationships to camp and silliness as they relate to more serious themes?
Camp.
Camp.
Summer camp.
No,
I think she means like camp.
Camp.
Of course. Camp.
I mean, I think camp is inherently queer, and so many of the queer films and TV characters throughout, my development as like a person and an artist have influenced my sensibility and my taste, for sure. I think it's like such a, fundamental part of my sensibility and what I like to watch.
Well, it's like a movie for me about play, and and just like learning how to sort of heal the thing we were just talking about. Like the more you have to find ways to make it fun and make it pleasurable and make it unself-conscious. And that was really my goal with this movie, was just to have a lot of fun, both because I thought it would help me become a better filmmaker, a freer filmmaker, and also because, like, if the movie is going to go to these vulnerable places and talk about these things, it needs to do so, like, once you feel like you're hanging out with friends. You know, sometimes I think of the movie as almost structured around, like, the kind of sex that started to make me feel more comfortable in myself, which is, like, goofy, and we're laughing together, and we're eating junk food, and we're watching
So much
movies.
junk food in this film, by the way.
Yes.
It's a very funny it's very interesting backdrop. One thing I did want to remark on was that in the film, Chris is told it has to be commercial. Did that happen to you once you became a more successful filmmaker, Jane?
Yes.
Yeah.
It happens.
Bottom line, yes.
It happens constantly. It happens constantly, and it's been happening since long before I was a successful filmmaker. Like, I remember early on, very early on, like after a lot of companies had passed on my first film, like somebody sitting down with me in classic like LA office vibes, going, "Listen, just like throw us a bone here, like meet us halfway." Like they said, I remember the guy said, originality is great from a creative perspective, but it's bad for business.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
But it's my whole career. It's been.
Wow.
But the secret is that, like, if I ever listen to that on their terms, it's like I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, and so you just
Good
have
for
to
you.
look that in the eye and keep saying no.
Why did you decide to make this movie after Hacks?
Oh, because I mean, I think it just embodies absolutely like everything that I want to be a part of as an artist. Like, I want to make work that is meaningful and political and funny and deep, and I want to make that work with good people, you know, and a good person, and someone who is deeply caring and respectful and safe and lovely, like Jane. So it's just everything that that's the thing. Like, Hacks gave me everything that I have, and every opportunity, you know, comes from that. And that set the bar of like, wow, I can make something quality with people I actually love. And so to get to continue to do that is like, that is all I could ever want for my life.
We've got about a minute left. Can you think of a moment in the film that you're really proud of, or that was a tough decision for you to make and you made the right decision?
I mean, honestly, not to keep bringing it back to sex, but so many of the sex scenes in the movie, I was so scared to direct them. I was just like, I'd never directed sex scenes before, and these are incredibly vulnerable scenes. And I knew that, like, for the movie to work, they needed to feel like a little different than sex scenes usually feel like in movies. And I remember just being like, oh my gosh, I just, well, whatever they need, I'm not even going to think about it. Like, we'll just follow the performers' leads. I'm going to make them feel safe. And then I kind of realized, like, wait, I'm doing the exact same thing that the character is doing. I'm like avoiding sex scenes. And actually it's my job to look this right in the eye and be a really like present collaborator. And that felt as scary as my first day of directing.
We're talking about teenage sex and death at Camp Miasma. I've been speaking with filmmaker Jane Schoenbrunn and actor Hannah Einbinder. The film starts in theaters tomorrow. Thanks for coming to visit us.
Thanks
for
so
having us.
much.